This week on Rockstar Superhero.
When it's from the highest point, I think you look at as a sign on the pavement.
There's something about the land down under. I've heard so many outrageously talented bands that come from the continent of Australia, and Sugar Spine is no exception. Now, Sugar Spine, better known by his given name, Josh Muncke, is a pure and ambitiously talented man. He's also one of the nicest, most humble people I've ever met. The new Sugar Spine album, Mirror Talk, is 100% all in. It's a mind blow of furious intent, literally millions of notes, impossibly syncopated grooves, and themes revolving around anger and failed resolution. It's a great work, and I couldn't wait to talk about the record, and talk we did. So, please enjoy this conversation as we navigate a new friendship over coffee and music. This is Josh Muncke, and this is Sugar Spine on Rockstar Superhero. It's so interesting to me how, on occasion, you can meet somebody online you've never actually met in the flesh, you've never communicated any other way, and somehow there's this innate, the intangible. You discover, you meet this guy, and you're like, I don't know what it is about this dude, but I can't wait to hang. So there it is, brother. I'm so stoked you're here.
Oh wow, that's wholesome as hell. Thank you. I appreciate that. I feel the same way. There are certain people that kind of just put through an authenticity through, whether it's through their socials or something like that, and you're kind of like, this person isn't putting it on for the sake of looking good. You kind of just get the feeling that maybe that is exactly who they are. So that's how I felt about you. So there you go. It's reciprocal.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. That warms the cockles of my black heart.
I'm glad. Makes me happy that you're happy.
Oh, good. Well, so before we get rolling then on the question side, because of what we've just touched on, what was it about? I got to know actually now. I got to know, what was it about what I'm putting out there that drew you to go, we should talk? What was it?
I think it was your willingness just to chat to anyone. And you weren't just hunting for the coolest name out there. You weren't just going straight for the bands that were, whether they were hyped bands at the moment or they weren't ones that were kindly releasing things on, press cycles or anything. You were just keen to chat to anyone and kind of, dive into topics that weren't just about the songs and about the band and stuff. And of course, like that's very much a part of interviewing people. Like I write reviews and do interviews for a magazine as well, and that's part of my job as well, to interview people. And I just go, hey, tell me about the album, tell me about how did you get there and stuff. But it's very rarely about stuff that's kind of outside the music realm. So that's one thing that I kind of looked at and went, yeah, that's nice. Like, I find that refreshing, and it was something that I wanted to engage with. So that's why.
Most nice people like yourself tend to come from an encouraging and thoughtful environment. Was that the case for you as a young child, for example?
Definitely. I was super privileged in the way that I was brought up. I think that my parents provided a ton for myself and my younger brother. We live in a beautiful part of the world in Sydney, just north of Sydney. And good school, good high school. If we were good enough, we could get treats at the grocery store and stuff. So I mean, we had an amazing upbringing, and I'm still being taken care of by my parents, even though I don't want them to. I have very unconditionally supportive parents, and it's almost to the point where it's like, you guys got to stop now, because like I'm a grown human. But I'm super lucky. I think with that being said, I do agree that lots of nice people come from good places, but I also think that there are some truly triumphant people who have had a victory in their lives and becoming good people, even though they've come from bad places. I think for me, if you are good and you come from a good home, that's kind of just because you've been brought up that way. But I find it more admirable for someone to come from like the worst places in their lives and then still become a good person. Because that is for me like the absolute strongest way of showing that you are, that you are a human that's been born to do something good on the planet, or at least, leave it in a better way than you found it.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, doing what I do, having chances, opportunities to speak to folks like yourself, when I do encounter somebody that's come up in a very tense environment, it's really lovely to see that they've, in a sense, become whole, right? That they've found a way, and almost always through, music, songwriting, some sort of creative process, that they're able to see their value as human. Because, I mean, you grow up in a tough place. It's like, okay, so where's the nurture? Where's the love here? Maybe this is just part of me, right? But how do you pull it out when you don't get encouragement, And the reason I even bring this up is because I was listening to an interview recently with Bill Maher. I don't know if you know who that is in Australia.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So Bill Maher grew up with a family like yourselves, very loving. There wasn't a lot of spite or negativity, but he felt alone his entire childhood, and in fact even found himself purposefully pushing away from social interaction because he felt, right or wrong, smarter than everyone.
He's a pretty intelligent dude. Like, you got to give it to him. Maybe he was just unlucky that he was born in a place where the people around him just didn't match up to that. That's completely feasible.
Yeah. So that makes me ask then: is your family musical? Do you have musical DNA? In that family unit?
My parents, I wouldn't call my parents musical. Like, they don't play instruments. I think when my dad was younger, he played drums, but not, I wouldn't say in a serious way. I could say. My auntie plays a bit of acoustic guitar or something like that, but I don't think my family is overly musical. But something, I guess, quite, whether it's just gambling or whether she was 100% true. My other auntie, when I was born, apparently she did this little life manifesto thing. She's a little bit spiritual in that way,
right?
And one of the things that she wrote about me was that he will be incredibly musical or something like that. And then, basically, since I'd say about 3 years old, I've been playing music. So, I mean, whether that was just a gamble and she was like, yeah, I got it right, fuck yeah. Or if it was like, I just knew. I was like, you owe me $5, But I mean, I think that's the only real thing I can think of when it comes to, my family being musical. It's just my auntie saying that I was going to be.
Yeah.
But my family, in terms of my music, they've been so supportive of anything that I've ever done, whether it's, learning trumpet since I was 7, or wanting to pick up the electric guitar or the acoustic, or, buying an electric drum kit and smashing the shit out of it, just going nuts. They've just been so supportive of that.
Oh, okay. So would you consider either of your parents creative in any way? Were they engineers, or were they into math?
My dad, for a long time, I guess in his earlier years, was a financial advisor. So that's probably the least creative. Well, I mean, it's creative in some kind of way, I suppose,
Sure.
But definitely not in the arts. And then mum's an accountant, a bookkeeper. She was a travel agent for a while. I think in terms of creativity, that was probably not one of the things that they capitalized on. But at the same time, that's probably just not where they were at in their own lives.
Right.
My mum loves reading, and my dad, I think he's very much more intent on just being outside. So he'll wake up, go to the beach as soon as he can, or if he doesn't go in the morning, he'll sit out in the sun on the deck, have a coffee, just, kind of just enjoy the morning, and then he'll go for a swim. So I think for me, they're always just about, doing things rather than, sitting down and trying to create things. And that was just their thing. And honestly, it made them happy. And, I guess with them being happy, it also kind of rubbed off onto me as well, because I love being outside. Before music, I'm also a massive lover of mountain biking. And
yes.
Yeah,
I am too.
Sick. Yeah. Well, here you go. Quick plug. I work for that company, Darko.
Oh,
and,
really?
Yeah.
All
and
right, nice.
So, a lot of my life is revolved around mountain biking and all that kind of stuff. So that's where I can kind of travel, and I get to see some beautiful places because of that. And I think a lot of that also stems from my family, from my parents being like, yeah, like go outside, do this, do that, get on a bike. And yeah, so not so much creative, but definitely pushing me to be basically just creative and keen to do whatever I wanted to.
Yeah. You know what, Josh? It sounds like they are incredibly healthy humans because,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like if you combine what they do, it makes sense why your parents connected, because they're sort of in the same space. They're dealing in numbers and the service of others. But it also makes sense that if they recognize a skill set in you, that they're healthy, they want to encourage their child, but they can also sort of live vicariously through your approach to the arts, because maybe it's something, you know, again, that they were never exceptional at, and now they have an exceptional child. You see what I'm saying? It's but who wouldn't get behind that, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's actually a really cool way to see it. I wouldn't say that my parents are like overly active, by the way. I think, you know, because my mom loves playing golf and all that kind of stuff, but she's definitely not the, you know, kind of person who, I don't know, comes riding with me or, you know, decides that she wants to do a race or something like that. She loves her golf, and, you know, that's one thing that she'll do. She'll spend the whole day outside. My dad's probably a little bit more active, I'd say. He does a lot of kayaking. He's actually done, like, he's gone to Hawaii for his kayak races and all that kind of stuff. So he's really invested in that. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely a way to put it. Like, maybe they weren't so creative, so they were fostering it in their kid. Yeah, mate, that's a cool point.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a health thing. I mean, when you in movies, every parent is either completely clueless as to where their child is going with life, right? Yeah. Or they're negative. They're all like, "You'll never amount to anything." You know what I mean? Yeah. And so to have such a traditional, wholesome scene like you've had is actually abnormal and pretty awesome.
Yeah, and you know, for a while, at least for a few years, I kind of felt not so much ashamed about it, but embarrassed about it. Like you shouldn't be telling people that you came from a good place, because then, of course, like you're privileged and you don't appreciate it enough. But I mean, I really love telling people about how. Well, obviously, I don't just like say, "Hey, I'm Josh. I was brought up really well." But I mean, when it comes up in conversation, I really do enjoy talking about how privileged I was, because I also really like to show appreciation for my parents, who just did an incredible job at raising me and my brother. Like, I feel like we just had such a beautiful youth, I suppose. And when it gets brought up, I just don't feel that shame anymore. I'm kind of like, no, like I'm lucky. Like I'm so lucky. And I'm not using it to put down anyone or anything like that. No, I'm just really just showing my gratitude towards my parents for that.
But I have to address this because this is actually really important to anybody listening. There's this weird upside down function in society that says we should apologize for being successful, or we should apologize for being healthy because others don't necessarily share our experience. But shouldn't we actually surround ourselves with people? In other words, I want to be the weakest link in the room, right? Yeah. If I'm in a band, I'm a drummer. I don't know if you know this, but if I'm in a band, I want to be the weakest, and I'm a killer drummer. I want to be around amazing, mind-blowing musicians because I want to be the shittiest guy in the room.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Do you have
100%.
that? Do you have that same approach as a musician?
Definitely. When it comes to Sugar Spine, I'm the only person in the room.
Right. I understand that, but still, you know.
But yeah, absolutely. When I'm around people and when I'm in certain scenarios where I guess I'm focusing on things that I am actively developing, so whether it's writing or whether it's music or whether it's mountain biking even, I definitely would prefer to be with people who are, better than me in any respect. I mean, of course, it makes pure sense to me, because if you're the best person in the room, there's nothing for you to learn there. Or at least there might be something for you to learn there, but you might already know it, or you might know a better way around it. But yeah, I mean, with mountain biking, if you're riding with people who are better than you, you're going to get better immediately. Like if you are, I do it all the time when I'm riding with people, and I ride with, you know, because I'm with Darko, we've got some sponsored riders and all that kind of stuff, and they're World Cup level, like they're top of the range. And being able to ride with them sometimes, or even just having the opportunity to ride with people that ride with them, you immediately see the level at which you are not at.
Yeah. Yes.
It like at first you're like, oh, God, I'm just a human. Like, and that person's not a human. But then you look at how they write when you're behind them, you look at what they're doing, what you're not doing, and you just learn like so easily. And it's the same with music. You're watching, if you're a drummer and you're watching someone play, I don't know, like if they're just paradiddling to the genuine bullshit, you're like, hang on now. And you're just watching them like that. And you're seeing how their wrist moves versus how their forearm moves, if they're doing this versus this, or if it's a combination of both. You're just looking at that and being like, okay, I've just learned something. I haven't 100% learned it, but I've examined it as something that I can try to work towards now. So yeah, I completely agree with you. It's important to be with people who are definitely better than you so you can build yourself up.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with following a leader,
No, of course not.
Human pride, though, is such a strange animal, especially in the artistic community, because, we kind of want to be the one that brings a new idea out, or we want to be able to say, look at this, watch this feel, listen to this song, ego. Right? Listen to this idea. And what's interesting is it's a lot like running a 4-minute mile. We were told it was impossible until somebody did it. And then all of a sudden everybody can run a 4-minute mile. Right. And it's same like with drumming. Now I'm not, I've never known how to pronounce his name, but I'm not Thomas Hawk or whatever, from Meshuggah. I don't play like him. Yeah. Okay. I'm a more of a funk metal kind of guy, like a Chili Peppers sort of thing. That's my jam. However, if I sat down behind my kit and tried to play along with Meshuggah pieces, I may not hit all the notes, but I was never even considering playing like that. I was never considering that multi-independent approach before. It just wasn't on my radar. But I'm willing to humble myself to attempt it now because I see that it's possible. I hear it in the notes. And that makes me curious for you as Sugar Spine, as your alter ego. How are you compelled? How are you moved forward to, sort of increase your musical wisdom?
I'm constantly listening to music, all the time. Gotcha. Like it just gets weird when there's silence now. It's just odd. I think one thing I do is with writing reviews for Sonic Perspectives, the US site, I'm constantly being given new EPs, new albums to listen to. So I do get a pretty deep look into what's happening in the modern metal world. Right. But I'm a huge fan of jazz, like all the way back to the 30s, like the Andrews Sisters, and then further into like Billie Eilish, Billie Holiday, Ella Fitzgerald, and Louis Armstrong are my two favorite jazz musicians of all time. Wow! And then there was another one that I was absolutely in love with for a while. Miles Davis, of course. Like with my trumpeting, because I grew up listening to jazz and learning from Miles Davis, and even just James Morrison, an Australian trumpet player as well, just really learning from that. So I think a lot of my musical foundations, they came from trumpet. And I think it was really cool as well. I didn't sing until I was about 13 or 14. I probably didn't scream until I was about probably 15 or something, but I think everything tonal wise, composition, understanding the different articulations in music as well come from trumpet, which is learning all the little things on a music sheet that you can really dive into and dissect. And then I think having that foundational knowledge was enough for me to kind of bring it over to guitar and then to drums, and then basically just kind of figure out, I'd say pretty much any instrument. The only instrument I'm having trouble playing is the flute. I can't get the
it's the embouchure, right?
It's the embouchure, exactly. Like I can get clarinet and saxophone and stuff. It just works, but flute's killing me. So I just kind of put that away forever. But I think trumpet is kind of where I started. But then in terms of how I develop, it just comes down to what I'm feeling at the time. So if I'm focusing all of a sudden on drums and I'm hearing something, if I'm playing a certain way, like when I was kind of just into the deathcore phase and I had a drum kit, I was listening to Suicide Silence a lot, like the 2006 era, like The Cleansing. Yeah. Probably the greatest deathcore album ever, to be honest. I think that's where deathcore went from here to next level. Right. Anyways, the drumming in that is straightforward to a point. It's just like, blasting, breakdown, blasting. And that's great. And that's kind of where I learned to blast. But then when I started listening to Structures, this Canadian, it's kind of like this, what would you call them? Like a mixture of gent, metalcore, prog kind of band.
Yeah, I'm familiar with them.
Yeah. They had an album that they brought out. It was called Slash or Strike. And there's a song called Encounters on there, which is actually on their previous EP. But watching the drum playthroughs of that blew my mind. Like immediately I was like, hang on. So you don't just have to, 1, 2, 3. Then they started doing all these incredible like polyrhythms and all that kind of stuff and paradiddles. And I was like, I haven't done that before. I haven't learned that before. So I just dove straight into that. And it was just another arrow in my quiver. And then I learned something else, another arrow in my quiver. So I'm just picking up things along the way. And when I want to revisit them or I want to dive further into them and see what kind of options they can branch out with, then I'll dive into it even deeper again and see how it goes. So it's just things that I pick up along the way, and then things that subconsciously influence me throughout, whether it's music making or just musical understanding as well.
What took you to Tasmania? Why'd you leave Sydney?
So my girlfriend is we live together.
There it is. That's all you need to say.
Well, she's Dutch, so she actually took me to the Netherlands like twice for 2 years.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah, we do a lot of traveling together. Like she's of course in Australia now, but we went to Tasmania because she's doing an internship with the University of Tasmania in Hobart, and yeah, she said, "Shall we go?" And I was like, "Yeah." Of course, like mountain biking down here is massive. There's some of the most amazing trails down here. And Darko works with a lot of bike stores down here as well. So I thought, okay, cool, I can make it, business related as well. I can go there and do some good for the company, and then I can also go riding. But then I also just wanted to live in Tassie for a bit and see what it was like, because I love this place so much. There's so much nature. So you can just go out and, get lost for days.
Yeah. I've heard one of the 12-foot ninja guys lives in Tasmania. I'm not sure if that's, I'm not sure if that's true or if that, the temporary thing, but I do know that their last album, I want to say Stevik was down there for like a year and had actually recorded all of his parts there. So I don't know, man. There's a scene, I guess.
Go. Well, I mean, Alpha Wolf is from Tasmania.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah, that's true.
So have you had a chance to do any playing out? I mean, look, I get it. You're a solo artist. This is not necessarily the thing that you do. That you don't take it out on tour and stand on stage with your guitar and a laptop,
just a microphone and a pair of speakers.
But you know what? I know some people have done that, and they've done it if they're busking, for example, on the side of the road.
Yeah.
So what's your plans for world domination? Do you even have them, or do you care?
I would love to bring Sugar Spine to a live setting. I think that there would be so much chaos that could ensue from it. And even just, thinking about it and imagining it gets me so keen. Like, I love the idea of just getting up on stage and completely, just going nuts, whether it's like, punching people or just, whatever it is.
Punching people.
Just on stage, yeah.
No, I get it.
Not walking to the venue and just starting like crack down on motherfuckers. No, but just going nuts. Like I haven't done that for ages. I can't remember the last time I was on a stage, to be honest, and I really miss it for sure. And I think if I were to bring Sugar Spine to a live setting, it wouldn't be half-assed. So I wouldn't do the old, get speakers behind me and just be me in front, because to me, I wouldn't call that a live setting. That's just karaoke.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, what I'm probably going to do over the next bit of time is very slowly but surely just kind of put the feelers out there. And if there are people who are interested in playing live, it's kind of like, I guess, Beartooth in a way. Caleb has, he makes the music himself, he produces it, and it's his music. But then when he wants to go live, or when he goes live, he's got a band, like a touring band that he works with. So whether it's like that, where I've got people that I work with constantly, or whether it's more like City and Color, who, Dallas Green will have just session musicians, not permanent members, I suppose. Whether it's either or, I think that would be a really good way for me to bring that to a live setting. So get a drummer, get 2 guitarists and a bassist, and then just send it.
The thing is and I'm not poo-pooing on your dream. I hope this happens for you.
Yeah.
Talking with Rowan from, I Built the Sky, and it's the same sort of commentary, this, that he's the creative, he's the band, he is I Built the Sky, you are Sugar Spine. And when you add in other elements as much as you want to play in a live setting, that has to be incredibly challenging because you have to overcome your ownership in the music and your specific way of performing a piece to allow another musician to interpret your material, which of course then changes how it appears to an audience. And that's a tough nut, man. I mean, I don't know how you overcome that.
I think you're completely right. And that's something that I wouldn't say that I have an issue with, but I would have, I guess, letting go struggles for sure. I think Sugar Spine is probably the first project that I've really kind of been deeply invested in it for a while. I work with another band. I'm the vocalist for another band based in the Netherlands. And whilst I love that, there is definitely a disconnect just because I'm so far away from it. So with that being said, the music's great. And I love working with those guys so much. But Sugar Spine is definitely where I've mentally kind of invested myself, and I found a lot of passion within it. So I can definitely think that, let's just say I get the band together and we start playing. I could feel that it is part of me that's kind of being, I don't want to say lost because that's a bit dramatic, but it is relinquishing a part of that project to other people. But I also kind of like the idea of that because then it's something that I can share with people as well. So I wouldn't be losing anything. I'd actually just be sharing it with others. So I think if I could give it to 4 other musicians and say, can you help me make this as wild as possible live? I think if you go in with the right with the right attitude, if you say, hey, can you just play this for us and let's just do it? It's like, yeah, okay. But if you say, can you help me to really bring this to a live setting and make it fucking manic? Like let's change things up. Let's keep the songs as they are, of course, but let's deliver it in a really powerful way. I think if I'm lucky enough to find the people that can help me with that, then awesome.
Yeah. The hardest part, of course, is not just finding the musicians who have the technical skills, but finding the personality that exudes from a stage, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And then doesn't reinterpret the songs to sort of fit the limitations of their own playing, but actually plays it as is, which has to be almost impossible, because not to say that you've created impossible to play music, but you've created very difficult music. I mean, it is difficult for the layman, the average musician. So you have to find really, really great musicians to be a part of your world, and there aren't a lot of them. I mean, let's get down to it, man. There aren't a lot of great musicians. There's a lot of good and average musicians.
I don't consider myself great at all.
Yeah, but you're doing really difficult things, Josh. Pardon my interruption, but
that's okay. That's all right. That's fine. I appreciate that too, really.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if you hear, the EP, which comes out 22nd of April, actually, it's coming out quite soon.
Yeah.
It's just riffs, man.
I know, but I mean, I guess I'm listening to it from a drummer's perspective because
oh yeah, for sure. Look, drum wise, tough.
There's a lot of crap going on in there, man.
Yeah. So I can play drums. I'd say quite competently, but I'd be 100% lying if I said that I could play the whole EP.
Yeah.
I definitely went into writing drums for the EP as if I were trying to play it myself. I imagine myself to be about twice as better as I am, and then I said, okay, let's leave it at that limit. And there are people out there who are definitely a trillion times better than myself at drums, and there's a lot of stuff in there that's super simple, but there's also there's some technical stuff out there. But if you hear bands like Lorna Shore or even Let Live, like they're 2 different bands, of course, but Lorna Shore, you've got Austin Archie, who is an incredible drummer.
Absolutely. Unbelievable, actually.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And there are not many drummers like him. You're 100% right. There are not many at all. But then you've got, I forgot the drummer of Let Live's name right now, but even though it's not blasting double kicks at 260 beats per minute, he's just playing with so much personality, and personality is also something that you can't learn. So if you find the right drummer, obviously someone who can, go out the blast beats every now and then and punch some cool stuff out, that's great. And not everyone can do it, for sure. But look, with COVID, I also think that so many people just dove into their instruments. I think a lot of great musicians were born during COVID.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think the nice part about YouTube, I complain about this all the time. I complain about the fact that there's too much content. There's flat out too much. Everybody wants to be a star. Everybody thinks they have something to offer. However, if you're you and you're looking to put the band together, you can pretty much find your band online. I mean, monstrous musicians,
Absolutely.
right? Because when I was a kid, I'm going to throw something at you here. I'm a lot older, I get it. But when I was a kid, I remember coming from the middle school down to the high school because I played drums in the high school band when I was in 5th grade. I was just fortunate to be in the right place, the right time with a skill set, and they needed me. And I remember walking down to the high school on the campus, and a kid comes out and he goes, "Ooh, that's Robbie." And then he said, he's better than Peter Criss from Kiss.
There you go.
And I was 10, you know what I mean? But the fact that he said he's better than Peter Criss from Kiss, well, my brain is like, he's the best drummer in the world. So you're telling me I'm better than the best drummer in the world. And there wasn't YouTube to argue the fact that that wasn't true at all. Right. Yeah. And so for a long time as a little boy, I was sure. I was like, I remember even telling my friends, you know, if I died today and I go to heaven, God's going to say you were number 8.
That's amazing. And it's so true, isn't it? You know, you hear that stuff when you're younger and you're like, yeah,
I believe you.
I believe you. I'll take that. But I mean, that's cool. I mean, that's a nice story. I like that. But you're right. With YouTube, everyone's putting stuff up there all the time, every day, whether it's YouTube, Twitter. Honestly, we just live in an era where we're just we are mass fed information all the time. Yeah. And I mean, that's just what's going to happen. It is what it is. But I mean, with that being said, when you do find something that is of actual value, it just makes it all the more special, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I mean, I know we're here today to talk about Mirror Talk, right? I mean, that's why we're here.
Sure.
Sugar Spine's new EP coming out next month, as Josh mentioned earlier. You know, I was listening, of course, to the material, and I'm not a big lyric guy. I'm not going to lie. I'm always listening to the melodies and the rhythms and the arrangements. That's my jam. However, I caught in your lyrics, there's a moment where you mention looking down on you from your high rises. And I don't remember the song, but I remember that line.
Gutterpaint.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gutterpaint. It's a great piece, and so, but it made me ask the question in my brain. You know, how much do you, Josh, struggle with envy or feelings of being less than? Because I mean, you grew up like you said, in a supportive, and I mean, I imagine probably above average, above middle class, whatever you want to call it. You know, you don't necessarily need money. You're not poor. You know, how do you struggle, or do you struggle with the feelings of being less than when you've been raised so efficiently, if that makes sense?
Sure. So Gutterpaint is definitely not about, for me, it's not about being jealous of the people who have more. So Gutterpaint is actually about political corruption. Oh. And the lyric is, you slid into a spot built on integrity, and tainted it with your vile dishonesty. It's not even a surprise. Transgressions minimized by your friends looking down from the high rise. So it's actually just about the nepotism and the corruption and the collusion between different political parties and players. And it was, I can't probably name the person that I was focusing it towards for defamation reasons, but there are certain political figures in the Australian political scene right now that they do some horrible stuff that gets exposed by the media, and then instead of being reprimanded or instead of being arrested or instead of losing their jobs and being kicked out of parliament, they get a slap on the wrist, and then they get the big blah blah apologizes for this and that, and then they kind of get removed from that position, and then most people are like, cool, they're out of that position. But then you actually learn that the next day they actually get promoted to a new job because they have just been moved from here to here. So it looks like they've been removed from their job, but they've actually just been allocated a better position. So they get paid more, they get more responsibilities, they get more power. And it's just because they're all friends with each other in this, in a certain party. And to me, that was just, I found it really sickening, just to think that, they can do some pretty bad stuff. They can impersonate being police, or they can impersonate a police officer, and then they can intimidate a young kid, or they can sexually assault people because they said, no, don't you know who I am, and then they can still get a promotion after that, or because of that, and that kind of just made me so filthy. So in terms of going back to the question, I think a lot of us, especially in the modern world, or the metropolitan city, that lifestyle of always looking to get as much money as possible and living as superfluously and affluently as possible, just kind of like always striving to get a good job that gives you good money and stuff. And I think it's easy to get jealous of people who do earn a ton more than you, like looking at those entrepreneurs who'll make like 50 grand a month or something. You're like, fuck, I wish I could do that.
Yeah. But YouTubers is a perfect example.
Yeah, exactly. You're like oh, that guy made 200 grand for like one Instagram post, and that hurts. But at the same time, it's also, there's this thing called relative deprivation, where you're always going to be looking at what you don't have compared to someone else. But then what a lot of people don't realize is that it happens behind you as well. So someone's looking at you wishing they had what you have. So I very much try my best to kind of look backwards instead of looking forwards, and just appreciate what I do have. But it took me a long time to get to that point.
When the world is so wonky and everything is upside down, and all the people you shouldn't be praising, a large group of your friends and family are praising, doesn't it give you a sense of hopelessness? Like, why am I doing this at all? Because I mean, as an artist, we're seeking to share our gift. We're seeking love. We're seeking fulfillment. The reason we do it is because we have a skill set. It needs to get out, and we want to get reciprocating love back. We're giving you our love through song. How do you deal with a world that's in crisis that doesn't really care about your efforts? I mean, do you care about a reward like that?
Wow, that's a cool one. I think Mirror Talk, the whole EP, apart from the title track itself, I mean, all the songs deal with different things that are outside of. It's not introspection, I suppose. So Mirror Talk is very, very much introspection. I mean, it's in the name, I guess. But all the other songs focus on misogyny and violence against women, Islamophobia, talking about oppressive societies and how lucky that we are that, we're not in the ones that are illustrated so uglily by some people. But then also just societal division based on what's going on. So let's just say like vaxxers versus people who don't want to get vaccinated. I'm being told, one of my friends doesn't want to get vaccinated with COVID, and I'm double vaxxed and jabbed and all that kind of stuff. But I'm being told by a lot of people around me that person shouldn't be my friend anymore because they don't want to get the COVID vaccine. And I was like, are you kidding me? And you want me to not like this person because of their own personal preference on what they do with their own body? It's like if we started telling all the women that they had to have abortions or they had to keep their children, and they're just going to make it a law. Of course, that's not going to happen because women have a right to their own body. Same way that anyone has a right to their own body not to be mandatorily jabbed. So when I'm being told by people that I should start hating the people who are not on my side, I find that really I find that ridiculous, essentially, because I should be able to choose who I'm friends with. And but with that being said, of course, a lot of people can choose some pretty gnarly people to be friends with. But I mean, at the end of the day, I'm quite not so much selective, but I feel like when I choose friends or when I have friends around me, I know that they're people who have really good values and they have a lot of integrity and they have really beautiful morals that I resonate with. And if one of the reasons, if there's one thing that we don't agree on, that doesn't mean that I'm going to immediately hate them. So let's just say, vax, anti-vax. Like, I'm not going to hate them. Well, we've had discussions and we've argued about it as well. Like we've disagreed, and I've said, no, this is why this is why you should get vaccinated. He's like, well, this is why you shouldn't get vaccinated. I'm like, okay, like that's fine. Let's agree to disagree, but I'm not going to hate you.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the way the world is, I mean, there's a lot of reasons to be misanthropic. You can really just look at everything going on and being like, Jesus,
we want to be on a team though, dude, right?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of tribalism and everyone wants to be on a team. But at the same time, there's a lot of hyper individuality going on. So there's a mixture of I want to subscribe to a label, but then I also want you to kind of respect me for who I am and what I'm doing. And that's fine. And I think those two things can live peacefully. They can coexist just fine. But once the people with the hyper individualistic sense give themselves a label and then start fighting other labels, it's like, well, that becomes self-destructive, I think.
Yeah.
So I guess at the end of the day, I'm just trying not to be so Mephistophelian when it comes to seeing the world as it is, because of course it's pretty dark. There's a lot of bad shit going on, but it's also so easy for the good stuff to be overshadowed.
Yeah.
And I'm doing my best to focus on what can be done or what should be done, or educating people just on stuff that essentially, reduces suffering, whether it's to humans or animals or to certain societies and stuff. I think as long as you kind of focus on that motivation in what you do, then that's, I think, a pretty cool way to go about it.
Yeah. A lot of people say, you are sorry, let me re-say this, that
right.
You think a certain way based on like the whole glass is half full, glass is half empty, right? Ideal. And I look at it as, the world is gray. There's equal amounts of darkness and light in there.
Yep.
And it's not hard to actually remind ourselves that light side is a pretty great place to be. Sure, we're curious about the dark side. We're curious about what draws people. We're human and we recognize negative experiences and negative moments and negative feelings that we have about things we're walking through. Mm-hmm. But we really need to keep our eye on the light, on that side of the prize, right? I'm trying not to say white because it sounds so racist, but on the light side, the lightness is everything. We shouldn't be pointed towards ferocity. We should be pointed towards love and intimacy and hope. And that's not silly to think that way.
No, definitely not. I think love is something that a lot of people are afraid to give out because, of course, it can be very damaging when it's not reciprocated. It hurts, essentially. And that is also when it comes to whether it's interpersonal or just even intercommunal, I suppose is another way to say it. Just providing love to groups or to people and not getting it back it's kind of like, well, where's the reward,
Right.
But at the same time, it's also good to be angry about certain things because you can only give love or good consideration or raise awareness for something so many times and be ignored before you're like, okay, well, you got to make some noise. And that's why you start to see, of course, that's why there are protests. That's why there are disruptions and all that kind of stuff. And it's important. Like you got to be angry about stuff sometimes because that's the only way that, you're going to get a response. Sure. People take that too far, definitely. Especially, and angry doesn't have to be violent. That's an important thing. A lot of people start to see protests, like violent protesters, like we're angry. It's like, well, you're not angry. You're just destructive. And it's like the Black Lives Matter riots. Like obviously the theme behind that or the intention behind that was so true and it was so needed. But then once the actual rioting started happening, that message went straight down the drain. It just became absolute pandemonium. And then the people with the worst intentions were allowed to take reign over that. And I think at the end of the day, it's important to realize why you're angry and then to use that anger in a constructive way. And constructive doesn't have to mean, being peacefully protesting and then you get forgotten about the next day, but it can be, properly advocating for change, whether it's via policy or whether it's via, major public pressure on governments and stuff. I think it's super important to be angry as well. I think that's actually the last lyric off the EP is "Be angry."
Yeah. Well, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Okay. So, for a nice guy, then, what is your most self-destructive habit?
Self-image, probably.
Really?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's what mirror talk essentially comes from. So the idea is, you can when you're looking at yourself in the mirror, and whether it's proverbially or literally, when you're taking the moment to actually check yourself, are you doing it with the integrity and the sincerity that you actually, that you should be giving it? Sometimes I'll look, whether it's I actually look in the mirror, whether I think about myself and I'm thinking about what I'm doing or the way I'm acting or the way that I carry myself in certain situations. And I'm like, okay, well, am I doing this the right way? It's like, yeah, for sure. It's like, try again. And there's a lot of self-doubt and there's a lot of self-image issues, I think, that come with that, at least for myself. And that's where mirror talk comes in, which is just when that heavy, I guess when the rest of the song actually begins, like that scream that just kind of explodes after the cute little intro. That's like the harsh self-critical version of myself kind of taking over and being like, get your shit together. You are not perfect and you are not doing things the way that you should be doing them. You have to look at yourself properly. Mm-hmm. And that constant battle between good and bad in, let's just say, in my heart is kind of what's epitomized at the end, which is the end lyric, which is live in purgatory. So you're kind of just constantly battling between, okay, well, do I see myself as good? Do I see myself as, do I see myself as like an idiot? Do I see myself as someone who's actually just putting some kind of face on for certain social situations? Or am I showing off? Am I being insincere? Am I thinking about someone else's best interests? And it's just this constant battle between I think I'm doing well, and then I don't think I'm doing well right now. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So, how do I ask that then? Because I mean, I was just thinking about like overcoming, like this idea of overcoming our self-destructive natures, right? The worst parts of our identity. I mean, it seems like you're a work in progress, as we are all. Yes. Do you have a spiritual outlet? I mean, I know from what I can tell and from what I can read, you're not necessarily involved in any church or belief system, but I'm curious if that's something you're attracted to or drawn to or confused by and want to know more.
I used to be like a full-on atheist in my younger teenage years, but that was definitely related to the music that I listened to. Sure. Like,
there's only so much Dimmu Borgir you can listen to.
It's like full Berserker, full Cradle of Filth. I was into it.
Yeah.
But I think that I still listen to that music. Actually, one of my favorite albums of all time came out in 2020, I think. It's called Indwell by Methwitch, and it is an insane album. It's probably the heaviest thing of.
Wait a minute. Methwitch, as in like methamphetamines? It's called Methwitch? Okay, for all you listeners, Josh just got up and walked away. So he's bringing something back. So wait a minute. So, wow, that's a real band. Okay, so this band is literally called Meth, as in methamphetamines witch.
Methwitch.
All right, there it is.
So, well, and by he, I mean Cameron McBride. He's actually the solo guy behind Methwitch. It's a solo project.
Okay.
And he put out the heaviest album I've ever heard in my life. That is the heaviest thing I've ever heard. And heavier than I, or heavier than, I don't know, whether it's Iron Dissonance or Japanese Torture Comedy Hour, like just so full on. And it was a revelation. Now, what was the question though? I completely forgot.
I forgot
religion.
Yeah, spiritualism.
So I grew up in a Church of England family, so Anglican family.
Gotcha.
And I don't religion wasn't pushed on me at all. I had scripture classes in primary school and all that kind of stuff, but I didn't really get into religion too heavily. But after I came out of my little atheist, everything sucks kind of phase, I definitely started opening up to the idea of at least opening a door in which spirituality could come into my life if I let it, I suppose. So I'm not religious. Like, I don't subscribe to any religion, but at the same time, I love the idea of what religion can bring people. One of my closest friends is a devout Christian, and he is one of the most beautiful people I've ever met. And a lot of stuff that he talks about, because I've just asked him as well. I ask him about his faith and what it brings him and what he believes that it brings to other people because of what he believes and stuff. And I find it really empowering. Obviously, religion can be a really dangerous thing. from any religion as well. I mean, it can be so destructive, but that also comes from people and their own internal morals or internal motivations, and they use religion as a vessel, I think.
Yeah.
But I think, the idea of religion is quite lovely. It's a good set of morals to live by most of the time. And it has this wonderful sense of community. I mean, it can be a really welcoming thing and a really fulfilling thing. So,
yeah. Well, it's, it tends to be tribal, and it's, unintentionally
Definitely.
as well. And there tends to be a sort of a general overarching, this is how we as a subsect, right? Like you mentioned, like Church of England. Well, then you have, Mormonism, or you have Seventh-day Adventism, or you have Roman Catholicism, or if you have Southern Baptism. And it's like, okay, so if we're all sort of splinter groups, right, like terrorist splinter groups from one source. I've always wondered why we've gone so far off the path. So, like, if you go to the biblical truths, I mean, and again, this is I'm not trying to get all Jesus-y on you. I guess what I'm trying to say is that if Christ, for example, is the center or the starting point of all those religions, how did they get so far away from the central tenet of his work, which is to love unconditionally?
Yeah, I think it comes down to also how people interpret it. The same way that there are different diets that have splintered out of, over the years. There used to be just omnivore, now there's vegetarian, now there's vegan, now there's pescatarian and paleo and keto. Like there's so many diets out there, and I think it's because people just approach their nutrition in a different way, in the same way that people approach religion. And I think people also look for things to get out of religion in a personal way too. So, I feel like if we all kind of stuck to the one ethos that came originally from Christianity, I think we'd be in a very different place. I mean, of course, we'd still see things that we believe are immoral now. We'd see things that are immoral still happening and kind of being okay with it. So I think it's important that, there are different iterations or different interpretations of religious rule or religious ideology that we kind of look at, because it just allows for more free thought, and it allows for people to kind of voice their beliefs in a way that others might not have seen in the first place.
Right. I love what your friend's done, though. Before I let you go, I think it's such a beautiful thing that your friend has never been pretentious or damning in his beliefs or behaviors around you who don't necessarily share those beliefs. And I think that's crucial. It goes back to the nice guy philosophy or the love philosophy, that the very best we can do for each other, whether it's through a podcast or through music or through partnership or having dinner with a close friend, is just being intimate and focusing on the person right in front of us and loving them regardless if we understand every belief they spout or like I am talking to you and I could say like, oh, I had a great time talking to Josh. Don't necessarily like all his songs, but I happen to like your songs. But you know what I'm saying? I think it's
sure,
so cool
exactly.
that we can sit here and have this because you and I understand, and I'm going to be arrogant for a second. You and I understand that what matters more than anything is this. Right now, you and me having a discussion that other people will listen to, that hopefully will empower and encourage and inspire.
I couldn't have said it better myself.